What if everything you think you know about women was planted there to control you? Not in some movie villain way, but through stories, images, instincts, through lullabies sung by culture, through fairy tales told in childhood, through every she's the one moment, every heartbeat that raced without reason. You've been taught that love is the highest pursuit, that she is your purpose, that chasing her, winning her, keeping her is what makes you a man. But what if that script was written to keep you blind? Friedrich Nietzsche didn't hate women. He feared the illusion of them. He saw through the roles we play, the rituals we obey. He said, "Are you going to women? Don't forget the whip." A quote that has been ripped out of context, labeled as cruelty. But was it really hate? Or was it an alarm bell, an urgent warning for men who can't see the strings being pulled? This isn't just about what she's doing. It's about how you've been trained to ignore it. Stay here with me till the end of this video, and you'll think of taking your power back. Desire isn't just emotion, it's architecture. And when it comes to male-female dynamics, that structure runs deeper than attraction. It runs through biology, culture, and power. Nietzsche's question wasn't, "How do you win a woman?" It was, "Why are you so desperate to?" This isn't about blame. It's about waking up, because somewhere along the way you stopped asking why you wanted her so badly. You just obeyed the want. And in that obedience, you gave something up. Not to her, but to the idea of her. This is not a war between genders. This is a war for your mind, and the first step is seeing what's really there. Men believe they're in control when they pursue a woman, but more often than not, they're walking straight into a game they never learned the rules for. Most men never realize what's really happening until it's too late. Watch till the end to make sure you're not one of them. Why men keep falling for it? The male delusion. Men aren't just victims of manipulation. They're often willing participants, not because they're weak, but because they've been conditioned over generations to find meaning in sacrifice, in pursuit, in pain disguised as romance. From the very first stories boys hear, love is painted as a quest. The hero must chase, fight, bleed, improve his worth. He must win her, not through peace, but through struggle. So men grow up believing that suffering is noble, that longing makes love real, that if it hurts, it must matter. And this belief is the beginning of the trap. Because the truth is, many men don't fall for women. They fall for the story about women, the fantasy, the projection, the dream, the idea that if she chooses him, he is finally enough. That if she loves him, his chaos becomes ordered, his wounds become meaningful. Nietzsche saw through this illusion. He believed men want to be deceived because the lie is beautiful, because reality is cold, harsh, ambiguous. And what's more comforting than a soft voice telling you, "You matter," even if it's not true? But what happens when the fantasy becomes a currency? When the very things men worship, her beauty, her softness, her attention, are used to shape his behavior? Modern dating apps are not playgrounds of connection. They are casinos of attention. You swipe, you match, you chase, you compete, and more often than not, you lose. But even in rejection, men find purpose. I just need to be better, they think, funnier, richer, stronger. They never question the system, only themselves. And in that loop, the delusion grows. The woman becomes a prize, not a person. Her approval becomes oxygen. Her absence becomes an addiction. And her manipulation, it becomes invisible, hidden beneath the promise of potential love. This isn't just emotional, it's psychological warfare. A man who is starving for validation is easy to lead, easy to guilt, easy to drain. He'll ignore red flags, excuse disrespect, accept crumbs, because in his mind, losing her means losing worth. Even when the signs are obvious, emotional distance, hot and cold games, threats of leaving masked as tests, he rationalizes. She's just scared. She's been hurt. I can fix this. But here's the haunting question. Is he in love with her or with the illusion she crafted? A woman who understands her power doesn't need to shout. She just needs to offer a glimpse of heaven, then step back. The man will do the rest. He'll build the pedestal, he'll climb it, he'll kneel before it, and he'll call that submission love. This is the male delusion. Not that women deceive, but that men want to believe, because belief feels better than emptiness, because devotion feels easier than discernment. Until a man sees through the story, until he questions the reward he's chasing, he'll keep falling. Not because she's powerful, but because he refuses to reclaim his own. And in a world that rewards illusion, the hardest rebellion is learning to see clearly. Reclaiming your power doesn't begin with anger. It begins with awareness. If you're waiting for a woman to validate you, you've already surrendered something sacred. Not your masculinity, but your autonomy. The truth is, most men aren't being broken by women. They're being broken by their own need to be chosen. You've been told your value comes from how well you provide, how selfless you are, how romantic you can be. You've been trained to equate love with sacrifice, affection with approval, and intimacy with identity. But here's the truth that stings. The moment you need her to tell you who you are, you've given her the power to decide who you're allowed to be. This isn't about hating women, it's about remembering yourself. Because the problem isn't that women manipulate. The problem is that men don't know how to say no. No to being emotionally toyed with, no to being kept on standby, no to giving energy to someone who only offers confusion in return. Men are taught to be strong for others, but rarely how to be strong for themselves. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers in the form of softness. It wraps itself in affection, in charm, in vulnerability. And men, conditioned to protect, provide, and pursue, fall for the illusion that love is pure, that her tears are sincere, that her approval means he's finally enough. Women, on the other hand, have mastered survival through subtlety. In a world where physical strength wasn't theirs to wield, influence became their weapon. Not by fighting, but by guiding the fight. By planting the thought, not acting on it. By shaping the outcome without ever seeming responsible for it. It starts small, a tone shift, a delayed response, a compliment laced with expectation. She doesn't need to demand anything. She makes you want to give. Men, in their hunger to be chosen, miss the signals. They call it chemistry. They call it fate. But often it's design. Women, whether consciously or not, understand how to be needed without appearing dependent, how to correct without seeming critical, how to control while letting him believe he's leading. This isn't about villainizing women. It's about recognizing the unspoken dynamics. Because the truth is, many men want to be manipulated if it makes them feel admired, if it gives their life a story. The battlefield between men and women isn't physical, it's psychological. One fights with force, the other with finesse. And until men understand this, until they learn to see the strategy behind the softness, they will keep mistaking attention for love and control for connection. Long before love letters, dating apps, or relationship therapy, there was survival. And survival didn't care about fairness. It cared about what worked. For most of human history, women existed in a world where physical strength couldn't be their currency. A world where brute force was the language of dominance and men held the weapons. So evolution taught women something different. If you couldn't overpower the environment, you had to influence it. Manipulation, as we call it today, wasn't about deceit, it was about adaptation. A woman's greatest asset wasn't her strength. It was her ability to shape perception, to control attention, to ensure loyalty not by threat, but by attachment. From an evolutionary standpoint, reproduction was risk. One wrong mate, one absent protector, one social exile, and both mother and child were vulnerable. So instincts developed to select the best male, to retain his attention, and to subtly eliminate threats. Not with confrontation, but with precision. This is where hypergamy, seeking the highest value partner, emerged. Not as greed, but as insurance. Emotional mirroring, a tool to bond quickly and deeply. Social sabotage, gossip, exclusion, passive aggression became a way to neutralize female rivals without ever drawing blood. Then there's mate guarding, The subtle check-ins, the timed affection, the sudden withdrawal that makes a man chase again. It's not evil, it's evolutionary muscle memory. A woman who could keep a man's interest had a better chance of protecting her offspring. Even nurturing and jealousy, traits often idealized or demonized, were strategies. One ensured closeness, the other control. It's not about morality, it's about legacy, and it's still happening. Every time a woman posts a perfectly timed photo, or withholds just enough to stay on his mind, or shapes herself into his ideal just long enough to pull him in, she's not acting from malice. She's acting from millennia of code written into her blood. This isn't a conspiracy, it's biology with lipstick on. And until we understand that, we'll keep mistaking survival for seduction and calling instincts manipulation when, in reality, they're just tools sharpened by time. There was a time when manipulation was subtle, an undercurrent beneath conversation, a glance, a pause. Now it's an algorithm, a platform, a brand. Modern culture didn't invent feminine strategy, it industrialized it. What once evolved in whispers now speaks in likes, followers, and curated feeds. Instagram isn't just a photo app, it's a marketplace of perception. TikTok isn't just short-form content, it's a playground of influence. OnlyFans isn't just adult entertainment, it's monetized emotional access, packaged as empowerment. We tell ourselves these platforms are neutral, but they're not. They reward performance, emotional exhibitionism, and strategic vulnerability. The woman who posts just enough to stay mysterious, the girl who crafts her pain into aesthetics, the influencer who shares a sob story moments before linking a promo code. None of this is accidental. It's culture learning to sell femininity as both product and power. The empowered woman is often just a new mask for an old game, where control wears the clothes of freedom, and men conditioned to see empowerment as virtue applaud. They double tap, they donate, they defer. But underneath this applause, something darker stirs. Emotional blackmail disguised as communication. Cancel culture as a way to silence male dissent. Victimhood wielded like a sword, not to heal but to punish. The narrative shifts. To criticize is to oppress. To question is to violate. This isn't feminism, it's a distortion of it. Because real equality doesn't require the erasure of truth. It doesn't depend on weaponizing weakness. Nietzsche warned of slave morality, the inversion of values, where suffering is framed as superiority and power hides behind innocence. In today's world, we're watching that prophecy unfold. Victim optics now dictate social currency. The one who hurts the loudest holds the most leverage, and the man who dares to question it, he's labeled bitter, broken, or dangerous. This isn't about hating women. It's about recognizing a pattern, one where men are trained to pedestalize, apologize, and submit in the name of progress, while slowly losing their ability to think critically. When truth becomes offensive and manipulation becomes empowerment, the line between justice and control fades. And in that blur, modern culture doesn't liberate, it colonizes the mind. Every civilization has told the same story, just with different faces. In the beginning, there was Eve, soft, curious, and dangerous. She wasn't a villain, she was a question, a whisper of temptation, a symbol of knowledge wrapped in beauty. And what did she offer? A taste of truth, a bite of self-awareness. For that, she became the mother of sin. Then came Helen of Troy, a face so captivating it launched 1,000 ships and destroyed an empire. Was she a lover, a pawn, a goddess? Or was she something older? The eternal reminder that beauty isn't passive, it moves armies. Circe, the enchantress, the woman who turned men into animals, not out of cruelty, but because they always were. She merely exposed what lay beneath their masks. The sirens sang, and men sailed to their doom willingly. Not forced, not fooled, just called, and they answered. These aren't stories about women. They're stories about what happens to men when they project power onto the feminine, when they assign divinity to desire, when they build shrines from longing. Nietzsche didn't create these archetypes. He inherited them from the Bible, from Homer, from centuries of whispered warnings. To him, woman was not evil, but she was chaos, a beautiful, necessary chaos. He saw in her both the pull toward transcendence and the danger of collapse, not because of what she was, but because of how man saw her. Jung would later call this the anima, the inner woman inside every man, a guide, a muse, a source of creativity. But when the anima is unconscious, when it's projected onto a real woman, it becomes a trap. He doesn't love her, he loves what she represents. He falls for the illusion, not the individual. The femme fatale is not just a character in noir films. She's an echo, a myth reborn in lipstick and silence. She doesn't need to destroy the man, he does that on his own. All she does is reflect what he wants too badly. In these stories, women are not simply characters. They are symbols of truth and temptation, of power and passivity, of creation and collapse. The point isn't that women are dangerous, it's that desire is. When unchecked, when worshipped, when disguised as salvation, desire can bend kingdoms and unravel empires. Not because of who she is, but because of what he sees. And in every myth where man falls, it isn't really her fault. He was warned. The apple, the song, the spell. He chose to listen. He chose to believe. Power is not noise. It's not performance. It's quiet self-assurance. The kind of calm that doesn't flinch when approval is withheld. The kind of presence that doesn't chase when someone pulls away. The kind of clarity that doesn't confuse seduction for sincerity. You don't reclaim power by fighting back. You reclaim it by stepping out, by choosing not to play a game that was never designed for your growth. The most dangerous kind of control is the one dressed as love. The most effective leash is the one you wrap around your own neck, because you're terrified of walking alone. But that's where power is, in the silence, in the solitude, in the space where no one is watching, and yet you still decide to rise. Reclaiming yourself means letting go of the fantasy that someone will come along and save you from your own emptiness, that if she just loves you enough, you'll finally feel whole. But no one can complete you. That's your work, that's your burden, and that's your freedom. So stop waiting for her to choose you. Choose yourself. Become a man who doesn't beg for attention, who doesn't fold under silence, who doesn't perform for connection, not because he's cold, but because he's complete. Power isn't taken, it's remembered. And the moment you stop worshiping the idea of her is the moment you start becoming someone truly worth being. She doesn't need to lie to you. You do it for her. Every time you ignore your gut, every time you chase what blinds you, every time you shrink yourself just to be seen, you rewrite the truth, not for her sake, but because facing it would mean facing yourself. The manipulation isn't always external. It starts inside, in the silence after a rejection, in the thrill of being needed, in the ache of wanting to matter so badly, you forget what actually does. This was never about demonizing women. It's about understanding the game you're already playing, whether you know it or not. Love, desire, connection. These aren't innocent forces. They come with rules, with leverage, with power. And pretending they don't is how you lose yourself to them. Every culture has wrapped the feminine in myth, in magic, in danger, not because women are evil, but because men keep giving away their will in exchange for the feeling of being chosen. It's not her attention that breaks you, it's your belief that her attention defines you. So stop waiting to be picked. Stop molding yourself into something consumable. Start seeing clearly. Love isn't safe, it never was. But clarity is. She can be beautiful, brilliant, intoxicating, and still not your purpose. You don't need to run, you need to stand still and see. See the game, see your patterns. See what you trade away just to feel wanted, because in the end, the most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself. And the most powerful love is the kind that doesn't cost your